What sets Christ apart as unique? I mean, Jesus made some pretty incredible claims. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He said before Abraham was born, I am, claiming to be the eternal pre-existent God in human form. Wow. What audacity. What arrogance. So what makes Christ different from people who we put in mental hospitals because they have delusions of deity? What makes him different is he taught amazing ethical teachings. Robert Coles, professor emeritus at Harvard in psychology, points out all the teachings in ethics over the past 2,000 years are simply footnotes to the Sermon on the Mount. The dude was an ethical genius. Secondly, when you watch the way Christ lived, the way he treated people, his compassion, his forgiveness, his love, his integrity, his abhorrence of hypocrisy, especially religious hypocrisy, that demands respect. Thirdly, you watch the way he died, nailed to a wooden crossbeam. Instead of cursing his enemies, he prays, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But fourthly, and most importantly, 3 days after he died, he rises from the dead. And over a period of 40 days, he appears to over 500 people who saw him risen from the dead. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, you were kind of criticizing that part of the whole, like, you're determined a bad person because you did something past your life. Now, you said God made people in his image. Why would he make hateful people that inevitably end up in theoretically eternal hell? Why would he...
First of all, I wasn't criticizing it. There was a juxtaposition between this is what it teaches and this is what the Christian faith teaches.
That was my misunderstanding.
No, it's totally fine. I'm glad you brought this issue up, because in the Christian faith, your bad deeds can follow you if you just keep living in sin, making poor decisions, but you're never too late to turn and accept Christ, just like the thief on the cross, and Christ turns to him and says, today you will be with me in paradise, because it's based off of grace versus I got to do all of this white knuckle it on my own and somehow I'll get to heaven. God did not create those people evil or bad. Every single person has a free will. They decided to turn away from the goodness that comes from God and chart their life according to evil or their own pride.
Now, that would be based in the ideal situation where everybody is born with an opportunity to better themselves. Now, what about those who are born in very unfortunate situations and they never are exposed to anything like that and they don't know anything other than that, and so they carry out their lives and eventually die? Do they deserve eternal suffering?
Absolutely not. When it comes to you're born into certain situations where, let's say certain places in Detroit, tremendous crime and poverty, that person who accepts Christ, you could say in terms of living ethically, is going to still start out on level 2 of a ladder which has 10 rungs, versus someone here who has perhaps grown up as a pastor's kid. I would probably start off at a level, say, 5, because I was born into this kind of family. That makes perfect sense. And that connects exactly to the gospel. Because in no way am I better than this person. We both have accepted Christ. This person will take longer to grow ethically, but we're still viewed in the same kind of way in God's eyes.
I was asking those who live their lives completely ignorant to the idea of Christ.
Yes.
Let's say.
Okay, that's been the number one question on this campus this week. Ignorance of Christ. Absolutely. But the Bible speaks to it beautifully. He'll flesh it out. I'll just give you the 3 I've been giving. One is Romans chapter 2. Based off of the knowledge that we have, it's general and special. General knowledge being our conscience. We know we have a conscience that determines right and wrong. That is not just personal or given by society. Secondly, it's nature. We see the order and design in nature, the beauty of it. That pushes us to some kind of creator. It just didn't pop up by accident. So that's Romans. Then you go to Hebrews 11. The patriarchs, Abraham, Moses. They are going to be in heaven. They never heard of Jesus' name. They're going to be in heaven. And then the final one, fall back on the character of Christ. no one is going to get ripped off. He was the one reaching across cultural boundaries, racial boundaries, gender boundaries, ageism boundaries. He was the only one going for kids. Everybody thought kids were just a tax on society. He's the one who says, today you'll be with me in paradise, to a thief, a criminal, a murderer. That's the kind of character and love he has, marked by forgiveness. I would lean on that character at the end of the day, rather than one that says, no, you know what, your karmic path, or from a Muslim perspective, if your heart's not lighter than a feather, you're not entering paradise. That's a terrifying perspective to me, because you never know if you truly will have eternal life or not.
It's a great answer. Thanks for raising that issue. What do you think about Jesus Christ?
Personally, I was born Catholic, but I am no longer anymore.
Okay,
I
why?
don't align with anything. I choose to see what's in front of me, see what I can understand, talk with other people, see what they understand, their views, and I kind of like to mold a reality that is representative of the world I live in today.
Good.
Because I feel
What
like
is the
that's
object
where-
that's more reliable than your Catholicism? You were Catholic, you turned away. So what is the object of your faith that is more reliable than Jesus Christ?
more reliable in what sense?
In the sense that you realized Jesus Christ doesn't cut it. So I'm going to leave Christ, and I'm going to go a more truthful, more reliable way.
The idea of Christ wasn't satisfying enough for my life. It wasn't I think this is lesser, so I choose to reject it. I choose to see all views and just see them as they are and create my own reality based on that.
Okay, so what do you believe? What's the reality you've created?
I believe what's here right now.
All right, if I go up and hit him, what would you say to me? What's your reality? What would you say to me if I go up and hit him?
Well, I wouldn't be very happy about that, but I'd probably wonder why at first.
Is it wrong for me to hit him, or is it okay? What's your reality?
I have no context, but the context I have now, which is nothing, I would assume it was wrong.
Okay. Why is it wrong? Who says it's wrong? You. Why are you right? I mean, why is it wrong for me to attack him?
Innate morals.
Innate morals. Very good. I happen to agree with you. Innate morals. Where do those innate morals come from? Innate morals, where do they come from?
Probably the evolutionary factor that made us a more social race probably favored qualities in people that want to help other people in their society.
So if I have an innate drive...
So, we're a social species, right? It wouldn't be beneficial to the species as a whole if you were to go up and punch him, especially for you, because then you would be ostracized because everybody would be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Okay.
And so it's just non-ideal for you to punch him. And that's just something that's evolved into what we think is innate morals, but it's really an intricate system that evolved over time. From my understanding of it, my limited studies in psychology.
So you really think that I'm not going to punch him because I want the evolutionary cycle to progress, and I want to promote this cycle, this upward mobility of evolution, so therefore I'm not going to punch him. That's the reason?
It's really hard to say.
It is hard to say.
I didn't mention everything, and that's why, psychology is such a fruitful field right now, is because we've seen the validity in it, and it's growing, though it's very new. And so, yeah, it seems really ridiculous to just say, like, oh, it's because you're morals, because that's the only concept we have available right now. But as we more and more study human psychology and why we act certain ways, not only can that help you, control the way you act, such as punching somebody. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do that, but it lets us solve more complicated issues and more complicated issues of why people act the way they do.
Sir, are you just a bag of chemicals, or do you have a soul? Is there a person, you, or are you just a complex chemical reaction?
I can't say, because I don't understand.
I am convinced from my experience and observation of life that if you hit him and tell me I had to because my chemical reactions in my brain programmed me to hit him, I would say to you, No, sir, you're lying to yourself and to me. Yes, they're chemical reactions. No question about that. The material is real. But there is a you that I'm going to hold responsible for denigrating him. That is based on an understanding that there's more to reality than simply the chemicals, the material. You and I are human beings with a free will, with the ability to love or to hate. You and I have a conscience, which means we can choose to do that which is right or that which is wrong. We have an innate moral compass. We can sear that conscience, like the Nazis taught their soldiers, by having the soldiers break puppies' necks. You keep breaking your puppies' necks and you eventually sear your conscience. So, Jesus Christ said, you and I and him, we've all sinned. We've all done that which we know is wrong. And we need forgiveness. And I don't think that you made a wise decision when you moved out of your Catholicism into La La Land, which is, I created all by myself. That's not wise, because you're not that reliable. The evidence is Jesus Christ is more reliable than that.
So, here's the difference. I never said it was only chemical reactions. That's just what we're able to study and understand with what we have available right now. Now, I'm acknowledging there might be something more to that, but the difference is I'm not saying it's one certain thing, one idea that I just came up with and said, oh, I think this fits, this hole that is missing in our understanding of a certain thing. So I'm just going to say it's God or Jesus or, whatever you want to say. And that's perfectly fine, but I'm just trying to let you understand where I'm coming from, and I don't feel like I have the ability to say for certain what exactly is the reason for everything. I'm just going based off of my current understanding.
Why did you leave the Catholic faith?
Rather than
Why did you leave the Catholic faith?
Because I realized this. Because I realized that if I'm not sure about something, I shouldn't fill in a substitute and then tell everybody to follow that accordingly.
So Catholics taught you to go around and tell everybody about Catholicism?
Yes.
No, they didn't teach you that. Come on. You know the Catholic Church doesn't teach Catholics to go around telling everybody.
How do you know that?
Because I am a minister in a town with a Catholic priest. He's a good friend of mine. I got many Catholic priests who are friends. And I know that my Catholic priests do not teach the people in their church. You got to go around telling people. You got to go around speaking on a street corner. They don't do that.
I accepted
the Jesuits don't do that either.
I am saying I accepted my current ignorance.
Yes?
My ignorance of the understanding of humanity as a whole, the world as a whole. I accepted that and said, hey, I don't know what it is, but I'll try to figure it out with what I'm given. Rather than say, I don't know what it is, but I think it might be this, so I'm going to spread that.
Why did you leave the Catholic faith?
I chose to, like I was talking about, I accepted my ignorance of, my understanding of the entire universe, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And instead of pinning that on something, I decided to fill in with, whatever I thought. I'd rather study what's real and what we can test and just really try to understand people for who they are, not where they come from and what religion they grew up in.
Well, what do you think Jesus did? Jesus accepted all people. Jesus attacked racism. Jesus insisted all people have equal value and dignity because they're all created in the image of God. Jesus taught that he commands his followers, love your enemy, love everybody. So where on earth are you getting off telling me the reason you left Christianity was because...
you don't need to make me sound ridiculous.
I'm not attacking you. You're expressing yourself. I'm expressing myself. We have a disagreement. So we communicate why we disagree. Sir, that's called a liberal arts education. That's what that's called. We respect each other. We disagree. Now we better kick it into gear and explain why we disagree. And so I'm asking you, what's the object that you moved to from Christ because this object was better than Christ?
I accepted my ignorance. I didn't want to follow something I was indoctrinated into. And so I wanted to make my own understanding of the world.
Good. Then have you on your own read the Gospels and examined the evidence that points to Christ? Instead of going the Catholic way, are you willing to read the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the historical record of Christ, and with an open mind, ask yourself, does the evidence point to Jesus being reliable or not? Are you open to that?
Sure, yeah. Maybe Jesus was real. Maybe Christianity is a thing. Maybe heaven and hell exists. I'm not throwing that out the window. I'm just saying I don't want to just accept things because I was told that as a kid. That's it.
So, I am challenging you guys. Ask yourself, what am I living for? And what's the evidence that what I am living for is true? So you tell me, and I didn't make this up. You told me I used to be Catholic and then I moved away from that. Fine, no problem. Now I want to know why you moved away from Catholicism and what's the option to Jesus Christ that you found to be more reliable, more trustworthy, more true. And that's why I asked you the questions I did. I'm not minimizing you. I'm saying, come on, sir, step to the plate, explain yourself, what you're thinking. That's all I'm doing. Okay? All right, man. Good to meet you.
Too.
Somebody else have a question they want to raise.
So how do you justify the existence of natural disasters or like things like COVID? Like obviously, if evil comes from the brokenness of humanity, like free will, right? If I hurt you and stab you, the evil came from me choosing to do evil.
Yep.
But suffering that's caused by just the world being broken, how can a loving God allow that to happen?
Okay, great question, hard question. How can a loving God allow this world to be so broken, so messed up? Ultimately, I do not know. But when you read the Bible, you begin to understand. In Genesis 3, when human beings rebelled against God, the train got off the track. The arrow missed the mark. And curses follow. Chaos follows. Injustice follows. The breakdown of life follows. Death follows and fills the gap. So you and I are born into a world that initially was good, created by God. But then due to human beings telling God, take a hike, God honors their free will, steps back, and all chaos erupts. That's the kind of world we're born in. Tremendous beauty, tremendous ugliness, incredible life, sick death, amazing health, warped diseases. Now, what you guys got to work through is why? Why is there so much beauty and ugliness? Why is there so much life and death? What is a worldview that adequately explains your experience of life? And I'm standing here saying to you that there is no more accurate, better worldview than what Jesus Christ communicated and what the Bible communicates. And my experience backs that up. And I'm convinced that Jesus Christ was spot on when he pointed out all of us are capable of doing tremendous good, and all of us are capable of doing tremendous evil. I mean, I cannot believe that on a campus as fine as University of Texas, there's racism, sexism, date rape, hatred, cheating, lying. What's going on? Why that? Because we got a problem, guys. It's called sin. Yeah. A free decision to do wrong in spite of the fact that I know what's right. And that's why I've lived. Too often I've known what's right, and instead of doing that right, I did the opposite. I am a sinner. And that's why Jesus Christ bled and died on a cross, to pay the penalty for my sin, to forgive me for the wrong that I have freely chosen to do. And the reason that I trust him is because 3 days after he died, he rose from the dead. Gosh, I promise you, sir, if you die and rise from the dead, I will listen very carefully to absolutely everything you have to say. Stuart, what are your thoughts?
Genesis chapter 6, the Great Flood. God's judgment of people. We get, though, that God was greatly grieved. He wasn't just this callous creator who said, you know what? These people aren't obeying me. I'm just going to judge them. I'm going to strike them dead. The reverberation of our sin absolutely was at a cosmic, sociological, and psychological level. That was clear. When I have some friends say to me, look at 9/11. We just had the 20-year memorial. Clearly 9/11 is a depiction of God judging New York City, God judging America. Do you think that's fair? Do you think it's accurate?
No, of course not.
There you go. Good. Very good. Good thinking.
I don't believe that's. I don't think we should ever draw a direct one-to-one correlation between Yes, there's sin in cities. In Austin, Texas, in New York City, in San Diego, San Francisco, wherever it might be, there's absolutely loads and loads of sin, of crime, of horrible things going on. God may judge in certain ways. We are not sure. God does not judge, though, in the same way that he used to in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, it was for an ancient Near Eastern culture in a way where he was making a light for the Jews, making a way for them to reach the Gentiles, to reach the entire world. And by doing so, he was not taking part of ethnocentrism. He was not saying the Jews are better than everybody else. No, he was simply using the Jews simply because he was using them. There was no particular reason. They were not better people. And we see that throughout the Old Testament. They kept failing, and God would judge them in certain ways. But then in the New Testament, you have Jesus coming, a new covenant. And by that, I certainly believe that there is still discipline, but there is not this same form of judgment that you have in the Old Testament.
I've got no argument for what you believe your eternal being is made for. Mine are made of energy.
Okay? The reason that Albert Einstein introduced the fudge factor to disprove the Big Bang is because Einstein was a pantheist. And all of a sudden, the evidence of the Big Bang pointed to the universe is not eternal. The universe has a beginning. And Albert Einstein did not like that. So he made an intentional mathematical error to try and disprove the Big Bang. Some other mathematicians discovered it. They confronted him, and he said, "You're right. I intentionally did that. I'm sorry, I was wrong." Question is, why? Why did Einstein do that? Because he was committed to his pantheism, that everything is God. And he understood that if there is a Big Bang, it means there's a beginning of the universe. Guess what, guys? Everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe has a beginning, therefore the universe has a cause. And Einstein understood, if there's a beginning to the universe, there's got to be some type of God. Not Jesus Christ, obviously, but some type of God. And Einstein did not want to move from pantheism to theism. But I'm very grateful that he was intellectually honest enough that when his mathematician friends pointed out, "You're dishonest, Albert," he said, "You're right," and he changed and he became a theist. I respect that kind of intellectual honesty. Now, why are you believing that gods exist simply because you believe they exist?
Because we have no proof one way or the other. And we have no proof they exist just because they exist. They've got to come from something.
Ma'am.
Nothing comes from nothing.
Good. Nothing comes from nothing. Very good. You never get something coming from nothing. We agree totally.
So if your God is eternal, where did he come from?
Right. He obviously didn't come from anywhere because, as you said, he's eternal. He doesn't have a beginning. We didn't say everything has a cause. We said everything that has a beginning has a cause. So an eternal God does not have a cause because the eternal God does not have a beginning. Make sense?
Nothing comes from nothing, and everything with a beginning has a cause are two different statements.
Yes, I agree. Different points. Correct. That's right.
So
You're right.
just because you believe he's eternal, he does. Eternal doesn't even mean that there's no beginning. It just means there's no end.
Okay. Good point. And I have a beginning, but Jesus Christ has given me eternal life, which means unending. But you're right, I have not always existed throughout eternity. So good distinction. But clearly, the Bible communicates God has no beginning and no end. He's eternal in that he doesn't come from someone or something, and he's not going to end sometime. He has eternity behind him, eternity in front of him. He's eternal.
And you're comfortable believing there's something that has always existed, even when time itself didn't exist.
You have to. You have to answer the question, what was around in the beginning? You have no choice. And you're either going to tell me matter and energy are eternal, or else you're going to tell me the gods or God or whatever spiritual being you're referring to is eternal. You have no option.
I mean, I don't know about matter, but energy's eternal. That's kind of like a whole physics principle.
Before the Big Bang, no matter, no energy. And then there's a Big Bang, which means there's got to be a cause.
I don't think we have enough information about the Big Bang or the things before it to know for certain that there was nothing before it.
All right.
Because as you said, science is limited, so we
That's
don't
exactly
know all
right.
the information.
You make a good point. But at this point, on October 1st, 2021, the evidence of astronomy is, before the Big Bang, there was nothing. Could change. You're absolutely right. In fact, we could discover the Big Bang never happened. Okay. Obviously. Okay. Science is a continuing process of getting in touch with reality. Okay. But at this point, one of the reasons that I believe God exists is because there was a beginning. And so then the question is, what's the most reasonable answer to the question, who or what is eternal? And I think it's obvious. The best answer to that is a personal being, God, created the heavens and the earth.
Does there have to be something that's eternal?
Yeah, there does. Okay, now what do you think about Jesus Christ? You've told us, you believe there are many gods, and I asked you why, you say, because I believe. Okay, so what do you believe about Jesus Christ?
Don't know a lot about the dude.
All right. Would you be open to reading the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and just checking him out as an historical person?
I'm barely keeping up with my homework, dude. I don't have time for your side project.
Alrighty. In light of the fact that you and I are both going to die, in light of the fact that he died and rose from the dead, in light of the fact that he says, if you believe in me, you'll have eternal life, what's more important than checking out Jesus?
Living.
And he says, this is the best way to live and to enjoy life, to live out the order that God created you to enjoy. So you don't have to worry that Jesus is going to be negative on your living. Instead, he communicates that he will give you real life, abundant life is what he called it, real flourishing life.